Ever wonder why the people with the big ideas rarely end up with the big money? Fred Baur invented one of the most profitable designs in modern history. Yet while his idea made Procter Gamble billions, Fred barely saw a penny from it. But his final move, it wasn't petty, it was perfect.
Let me guess, his bonus was a thank you card?
Not exactly, but let's just say what he did get was the kind of send-off corporate bonuses can't buy. And it all started with a Pringles can.
A Pringles can?
You betcha. But let me back up a bit. In 1956, Procter Gamble was looking to develop a new kind of potato chip. One that didn't come broken into pieces, wasn't greasy, didn't go stale before opening them, and didn't have a bunch of extra air in the bag. They put Fred Baur on the project, and it was his job to figure out a solution. Fred was an organic chemist and food storage scientist. Prior to this potato chip assignment, Fred had developed a few different oils to fry food in, as well as freeze-dried ice cream. So Fred got to work on developing yet another product for Procter Gamble, a snack that would eventually be marketed as Pringles Newfangled Potato Chips.
They're not broken, taste a lot fresher too. The canister keeps them that way for you. Pringles Newfangled Potato Chips.
The canister keeps them that way for you. Whoops, got a little carried away there. It's a catchy jingle. Anyway, Fred spent the next 2 years figuring out how to make the chips and how to keep them fresh and unbroken. Trying to figure out ways to keep them from breaking, he settled on what he called a saddle shape that would allow the chips to nestle together when stacked on top of each other. Fun fact, this shape is called a hyperbolic paraboloid. Anyway, Fred used a so-called supercomputer to model the chip's design. You know, one of those room-sized beasts a phone from the 90s could embarrass. He also used it to develop a tubular-shaped can to store the chips in to keep them from breaking. In 1966, Fred filed for a patent from the U.S. Patent Office for the tube-shaped Pringles can, and also for his method of packaging the chips stacked on top of each other, the way we all know and love today. This patent was given to him in 1971. However, after working on the Pringles project for 2 years and coming up with the perfect chip shape and container for them, he still couldn't get them to taste good. You know, only a minor issue when it comes to snack food.
So engineering genius, but flavor disaster.
Priorities, my friend, priorities. Fred moved on to other projects while other minds were brought in to make the chips palatable. The science of junk food, so good for you. By 1968, the chips were deemed tasty enough to sell, and Pringles sales began in Indiana. They were gradually distributed around the rest of the country, and by 1975 were available all across the U.S. By 1991, Pringles were distributed internationally. Even though Fred was the patent holder for the chip container, he didn't receive any compensation for it apart from his normal Procter Gamble salary. But legend has it that he wrote his original idea for the can and notes on a napkin he supposedly held onto until he passed away in 2008. His kids would later call that their $1 million napkin. 4 years after Fred's death, Procter & Gamble sold Pringles to Kellogg's for $2.7 billion. Part of that deal involved transferring patents and associated royalty agreements to Kellogg's, including the packaging patents originally tied to Fred's work. The patent holders were compensated for their work at the time of sale, which included Fred's heirs, his children. But that's just the boring money end of it. Fred, he wanted to go out in style. You see, he got to watch his genius chip idea go from being a work project assigned by his managers to becoming the fourth most common snack food sold worldwide. These Pringles cans were everywhere. Grocery stores, airports, gas stations, even movie theaters. Seeing this success, he would often tell his kids that he wanted to be buried in the iconic can that he invented. And you know what? They honored his wishes like the loyal kids they were. Some of his ashes were packed in an original flavor Pringles can, which was buried alongside his urn. Imagine finding that can. Once you pop, you better stop. Anyway, while Fred didn't get financially rewarded, having kids who love you enough to honor your final wishes, that's real riches right there. Fred didn't fight Procter & Gamble in court, he didn't make headlines, but in his own quiet way, he made sure his legacy stayed sealed up tight. But not every inventor lets things slide. Next time we'll meet Robert Kearns, the man who didn't just invent a game-changing technology. He went to war with one of the biggest automakers in the world to prove it was his.